Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Market Trade Group, and this is Monday. It is the October 24th. Sorry, I had to double check the date there. Hope everybody had a nice trading day and had a nice weekend. Let's get to the price action. First of all, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for education purposes only. So a couple themes for the day. I'll try to get through things quickly. I want to try to get these videos a little bit shorter. So I will get through some of the key events very quickly. We'll talk about the movers, and we'll talk about just the overall feel for the market. So, there's a couple stories for the day. One of which was what happened in China overnight, and it is a little bit of a head scratcher that this really didn't affect. Not only did it not affect U.S. stocks too much. I mean, they bounced around in the overnight session, but they also didn't affect European stocks at all. So remember, it's it's sometimes it's not just us, in terms of like whether things are affected, but you could see European stocks close on the highs. So perhaps we're tracking with a little bit more of European stocks right now. Perhaps we're kind of just doing our own thing, because that is a huge move that happened overnight in Hang Seng. But a lot of this is political driven, and it is just interesting that I think a few years ago, or maybe even in the beginning of the year, if the Hang Seng fell this much, you would have seen U.S. global stocks just go down in response to it, but we didn't. And that's just interesting. It could also just be that there's a lot of damage that's already done at this point to the U.S. market. So you could come up with your own reason for it, but bottom line is just stocks were not really affected both in Europe and in the US based on what Europe did overnight. So that was a shakeoff. You could see the KWEB ETF was down 14% for the day. Some things actually came up there, but I don't really want to focus too much on the China stocks, because I don't really want to get involved in that. I don't want to get involved, like today, if you turned on if you turned on CNBC or something like that, they talked about Meta all day long. I don't really get it now at this point to be talking about Meta. We've had our price target for this is 117 for this. Now, I don't know if that's going to get hit. I think, really it was this break of 157 that was really interesting. I've been from time to time been short this name. There's, I get that names were so popular. But at this point, what's very interesting is, these names could go up at this point for earnings. Many of these names that are going to report this week, but are there really that many cares about some of these names at this point? I could tell you, I have not traded these names, and I've been pretty adamant about that throughout the year, other than shorting this name. But I really haven't been involved in any of the FANG names, because they've lost leadership some time ago. I mean, Apple's been obviously the best performer out of the group, and we'll see what happens once we get to earnings. Apple did rally right into the bottom of value. Maybe that's a place if you're looking to possibly short it. But again, it's going to be earnings that's going to be the driver. This is a nice move from the lows in Apple, but again, it's still below the 50-day moving average, the 200-day moving average, and I think all the FANG stocks are. So yeah, it'll be interesting, as well as many other names that are going to report this week. But I don't think it's as big as like people, because of the market cap. People are really focused on what these big names, because they've been so popular for so long. But I tell you, I hate to break it to people. I don't think that, could this affect the market? It could affect the market because they're so larger. But the groups that have leadership are not these names. And believe it or not, it's energy names that have the leadership. So yeah, it'll be, everybody will be watching. I'll be watching as well. Amazon, Apple. I think Google could be a buy here. But I'll tell you, if these names miss, I just think at this point, I don't know if they go down that far, even if they miss on earnings, because people forget for whatever reason, right? They forget to look at what the price has done over the last few months. I mean, this name was 150, topped out at 150. It's at 102. So even if they do miss, they could go down farther, of course, depending on how poorly if the name misses. But a lot of what we've been seeing for some of the names that have gone down down decently is that if they turn in a so-so quarter, some of these names are actually going up because some of the bad news is priced in. I'm not saying all the bad news is priced in, but that'll be interesting. And if these names come back and if they want to retake their 200-day moving average, their 50-day moving average, listen, I'm all about playing them again. But for now, there's no reason other than they've got a brand name, and that's investors really get stuck on brand names because they fall in love with these names. But I will be happy to play any of these names, the FANG names, once they actually prove it first. Remember, in trading, I try to talk about this a lot because I think it's a different concept. Don't get sold by the stock. Let the company sell you on why it's so great. People always are trying to convince, oh, this name is going to be back. That's how Twitter used to be, right? And still is to some extent. Oh, this name is going to go it's going to go back to the highs. Da 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 da. Right? That's what you used to hear all the time, like guaranteed. This is what's going to happen. Let the price action sell you on why it's so great that you have to be in it, right? Forget about the stuff that you think it's down so much that it's a bargain, right? That's see all the names that went down today. Your Alibaba, all these names, they've been going down for months and months, right? Now I get it. If you played some of these names as they started to kind of regain a little bit, I did that a few months ago with some of the China names, but once they broke back below their 50-day moving average, I haven't participated in any of these names either, right? This DQ had some momentum to it for a little while, right? But once all of these names, right, and we can look at the whole ETF, right? Just as an example of names that are in downtrends, there's no rush to get back into a name that's in a downtrend. I get that so many people who don't look at technicals at all think that they're going to know better than the price action. That's not our game. And like I said, and I'll repeat myself the last time, and then we'll go over some more constructive things. But there's no reason to try to think that you're going to try to time the bottom. Look at what happened with, this is where the Chinese internet ETF, topped out. There was all these inflows that happened in here too. When this was 50, 55, people thought they were buying the dip. I mean, this is now down to $18, right? Look at Snap last week, right? Snap is now an $8 stock. It was an $83 stock, right? So wait for some confirmation. Don't be in my opinion, don't be in such a rush to think that you're going to get, the bottom of these things. I mean, $8. Could you imagine purchasing this at 20, 30, 40, 50? I can't. I mean, and that's one of the things that we've done at Tribeca Trade Group is stay out of the way of this stuff until it's done bottoming. What you want to see, and like, here's a good example. Like there's a stock that I've been watching, this PCG. Look at the weekly chart of this thing, right? Now, again, this has nothing to do with FANG stocks, right? But this is a utility, $71, right? Look at it since it went down from $70 and now it's just 14. But look at the process of when it finally made its lows around like $4 or $5. Look at what it's been doing since. Sideways, sideways, sideways for the last couple years. Now, that means like if you thought you were doing a great job and saying, I'm going to buy the dip in PCG just because it was at $70 and now it's at 25, right? And if you bought this somewhere in here, you missed the whole rally in all of equities because you thought that you knew something, that you were going to buy the dip. So that's my whole spiel on this. Again, we'll wait and see if these results are going to be really compelling, because let's look at Google, because that's the one that I'm kind of most interested in, maybe a little bit Microsoft. But here's the 200-day moving average. If this name is going to be so hot and so great, then why isn't this above the 200-day moving average? That is really, if the stock is going to come back to new highs, I will wait until the bottoming process is complete. I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter. They try to do this whole game on me too with pins, right? And pins, we know that it took out the Virgin point of control, after making, after we found out that there was an activist investor in there, and the stock went up to 25 bucks, and that's as far as it went. And I said on Twitter, I'm like, hey, let's see if this thing can get past 26. And I had somebody not argue with me. They were just, they were stressing their point. They were like, oh, this is such a great company. It's going to be awesome. And this is worth so much more than it is. I'm like, okay, well then if you're so right, then it should have no problem going above $26, right? If this is such a wonderful company, right? And, again, somebody getting sold on the company rather than, rather than the other way around, which it should be telling you why the price action should be telling you why it's so great and why you need to get into this company. But long story short is, I said, okay, if it's so great, then it should have no problem getting above $26. And where's the stock? Where's the stock now? The stock's at $22. So again, I don't need to get it at $22. Because really, I've got to have confidence in this name, and I've got to have confidence in the trend. So I'll wait again till it gets to $26, because really, at the end of the day, if you love this company, you probably want it to go back to like 40, 45, 50. So who cares about the first $3 of the move, right? So again, don't get sold on these on the stock. Again, the stock and the company are two different things. People get lost in that too, right? For example, I use Amazon. I love all Amazon products. I use Amazon Music. I have Amazon Prime. So I love the services that the company has. It doesn't mean that I love the stock price right now, right? That's two different separate things. All right. So in any event, I'll move on. Let me talk again. I try to keep these videos short, but I'm kind of getting a little bit off track here. So let's talk about the S&P and where is the S&P going right now. So a lot of people were observing today, because we've been very focused on what the bond move has been doing, right? Rates have been going higher, and bonds were down again today, meaning rates were going up. TLT was down another 80 basis points. So we don't have like a bottom yet. Did we take out an important level? We did finally today, right? So this Virgin point of control has been taken down. Notice that in TLT, we don't have another one behind that for on the weekly chart. I think we do here, which is 89.58, but we really didn't get any confirmation that bonds are bottoming, right? And if you want to look at how this looks on the yield curve, right, we can bring up bonds here, and we can bring up the you could see across the board yields went higher, right? So 2-year is up to 4.5. The 30-year went up also about 5 basis points here as well. So yields up across the board. So this was not confirming. However, just because yields went higher today, and if you're scratching your head and you're like, geez, well, why did equities go higher? Because not everybody looks at this relationship. Yes, I think overall we want to see bonds start to go up because it alleviates some of the stress that is happening right now in equities. But on a day-to-day relationship, you're not going to see that, because not every fund who's doing the buying out there, not every pension fund, or not every institution is following exactly what's going on in rates and is going to wait before they buy, right? Some people are going to wait until rates start to kind of head down again. Also, we're starting to hear a lot about Fed talk. We don't, the Fed speakers are in their quiet period, but Janet Yellen was speaking today because she's not in the Fed anymore. She's the Treasury. But in any event, there isn't any major change, right? I think people are starting to maybe look at the, saying that, okay, we're getting to the point where we've got 75 basis points. That's going to happen on the November 2nd meeting, probably going to get another 50 basis points based on what Fed fund futures are pricing. But yes, then it really begins to kind of stop after that. So perhaps investors are starting to kind of look towards the end of this. And say that, provided that we get some inflation data, and by the way, we do get another inflation data point that's going to happen on 12/18, right? So again, everybody will be focused on the CPI, which will come out in November. But let's see if the PCE deflator, which is another gauge of inflation, if that can come down. Now, if it doesn't, then it might be more of the same, and we might see equities give back some of their equities give back some of their gains if inflation doesn't confirm that it's starting to go down. That's going to be really interesting. So all of the earnings reports that we have, very important. Plus, we're going to get inflation data at the end of the week. Okay, so just kind of giving you a sense of where things are lining up. Could we get up to the 50-day moving average here? Notice that price is now inside the value area, above the 5 to 20. So if this holds, this 37.47, which is a level that we've been talking about, then I think we can maybe see a push up to the 50-day moving average, right? Also note that we got basically right around the highs of the beginning of the month. Very interesting when you look across the different indices, which have gotten above or are at versus which ones not yet. So let me finish with the S&P analysis. So remember this level, right? So this 50-day moving average, which of course will change because it changes every day. But right now it's right around 3888. Okay, so 3888, that's where the 50-day moving average is. And if you look on the 1-hour chart, by the way, real nice check back on the China news to the top of value, right, which gave back a lot of the gains from the overnight session, but we held in there nicely. So look at this, where this virgin point of control is lining up, right? So we're using volume at price to come up with that, and 38.79 is very close to the level that I just mentioned, the 50-day moving average. That is what I am looking for, and I actually put on a call spread for this week to see if we can actually get up there. All right, that's the test. Okay, and again, I like to have some exposure for where the next resistance point is. Again, doesn't mean that we have to get there. There's a lot of events this week that could change that, but that's what I see. Let's look at NASDAQ really quickly. This had a nice move today, but take a look. It's still weaker, right? We closed right at the bottom of value, and notice what I mentioned in the previous chart, that are we above the beginning of the month's highs? No, this is weaker. We actually closed right at the bottom of value. Keep an eye on that 11,465, or if you're not a NASDAQ futures person, if you're a Qs person, you could look at 277.75, right? Again, a little bit closer, but not there. And then IWM, which was not a factor for the day, it was just up 40 basis points. Has some work to do here as well. Interesting, a little bit of a different technical picture here. IWM is still in value for the week. It opened up in value for the week, whereas the resistance is 174.76. Notice the difference, that IWM is inside value for the week, and and S&P is above value. All right, so I tend to go with the strength, and that's why I threw on an S&P trade. Strength for the day, and again, this is a little bit going back to the interest rate move. If you look to see what areas of the market outperformed today, right, it was not your higher beta areas of the market. In fact, it was your lower beta things that are cheaper. For example, look at what happened with XLV today, right? Your healthcare ETF was your best, I believe was your best performer. Even though it's still below the 200-day moving average, there are certainly, if you go through some of these names, VRTX went out to new highs today. So there's some good setups in here. Lilly, also not the best looking, end of day candle, but this broke to new highs. Biogen, which I believe reports tomorrow morning, had a real nice, it's been kind of, hung in here a little bit, had a nice reaction here, settled back down and back out new highs. So some real nice strength within this group. And then of course, managed care, Humana made a new high. I think Cigna's right there too, right? So, this is where the strength is right now. And again, they're cheaper names. This is something that I went over in our weekend member video. I talked about how I like healthcare because it just kind of fits right now. And, even if TLT starts to move up, right, it's still going to be a very high rate. And this area makes more sense to me. Energy was kind of quiet today, even though it was up about 0.5%, kind of underperformed the indices a little bit. But this is another area that is not super expensive. Another kind of cheapy area, right, is these auto parts companies. Look at what AutoZone did today, up 4.6% today. Orly is another name too, out to new highs, up 3.3%, right? And then GPC, which had strong earnings last week, look at this move, up 5% for today. So right now, this is what the market is in love with. Cheaper names, rather than, heavy growth tech names, right? I think this is going to be the story for a bit until we do see something change, right? And then the banks. Goldman had a nice fall. Goldman is now above the 200-day moving average. Still doesn't kind of looks like a funky chart to me, but it is above the 200-day moving average. And a few other names. Hershey finally got out of value. Again, consumer staple, not an expensive name, right? So if you broaden your horizons, right, as long as, the one thing that's nice about being an individual investor trader, right, you don't have a mandate. You don't just have to trade high growth names, right? You could trade a Hershey. You could trade energy names. You could trade healthcare names, right? That's the advantage of being an individual investor. And I would not get sucked into saying that you only have to trade this type, only tech stocks or only a few other stocks. The semiconductors, some of them little by little are starting to show some strength. Global Foundries, which has been a favorite of mine for a while. We have this on the TTG watch list. This name did well. CEG also has been very interesting too. This is a nuclear energy name. Watch 88. It's made a nice move from the lows. We'll see if it can carry through for the day. Finally, here's our watch list that we put together for members every weekend. Last week we had, a really nice week in the room, even though I was out for a good portion of the week. But, a couple of these worked pretty well. Medical devices, the SWAV, I know everybody's looking at this name, so I'm not going to bring up the chart. But you could see GPC was very nice, Hershey, a couple other names. But this is how we set this up. And then what we do, every Sunday is not only do I provide the triggers for these, but I also provide in an email as well as in this charts channel, I provide as well, where you could possibly take, targets. All right. So here's, so for a good example, Suncor Energy, which I don't know if this name did much today. I was actually down today, but the bottom line is what we're doing here is not only are we providing the triggers, but we're also providing the upside targets as well. So you've got a little bit of a game plan, right? So you're planning out your names, before you even put the trade on, right? So Global Foundries was one name, watching the bottom of value, which it broke into. And then of course your targets right around 57 and 59, which I don't think we got to. Let's see, did we get to the first target today? Probably we did get through the first target and almost to the second target up there at 59. And if it gets to 59, then you can look at 63. All right, guys, that's it for today's recap. I hope that helped. Maybe not as short as I would have liked it to be, but I'll work on that for the rest of the week. Guys, have a great night. And if you're not a member of Tribeca Trade Group, check it out. I would love to hear your feedback about what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, as well as, when we compile our watch list and how that's working for you. But some nice plays on this as well as from last week. Guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.